Sarah Chun walked into the biggest room she had ever seen. The walls curved up so high that she could not see where they ended. Strange lights floated in the air, making sounds like humming bees. The air itself felt thick and heavy, filled with gases that helped different aliens breathe. She was the only human in the room. Around her sat creatures that looked like nothing from Earth. Some had crystal bodies that sparkled like diamonds. Others were made of what looked like colored smoke that moved and shifted. There were beings with too many arms, too many eyes, or no eyes at all. Some were so large they needed special platforms to sit on. Others were so small she could barely see them. This was the Galactic Council. 47 different alien species from across the galaxy came here to make decisions. They had been meeting like this for thousands of years, long before humans even knew that space travel was possible. Sarah carried a small device in her hand. It held all the information that Earth's best scientists had gathered over the past 2 years, information that scared them, information that made them send her here today to warn everyone. She walked to the center of the room where a tall platform waited. Her footsteps echoed in the huge space. The aliens watched her with curious eyes, tentacles, or whatever they used to see. Some made soft noises that their translator devices turned into whispers. "Look, it's the human," one voice said through the translator. "What could they possibly want to tell us?" said another. "They've only been in space for 300 years. What could they know that we don't?" Sarah stepped onto the platform. The surface under her feet began to glow, and suddenly her voice could be heard throughout the entire chamber. She looked around at all the different faces staring at her. Some looked kind, others looked bored. A few looked like they thought this was a waste of time. "Thank you for letting me speak today," Sarah began. Her voice stayed calm and steady, even though her heart was beating fast. "I come here with urgent news from Earth and all human colonies." She pressed a button on her device. The air above. The platform filled with images and numbers. Charts and graphs appeared showing data from deep space. The aliens leaned forward to look, their various eyes and sensors focusing on the display. "For the past 2 years, our deep space monitoring stations have detected something unusual," Sarah continued. "We have found patterns in the empty space between galaxies. Gravitational waves that should not exist. Energy readings that do not match anything we know. The images showed vast areas of dark space where no stars shone. But the readings revealed that something was moving there, something huge, something that bent space itself as it moved. Our scientists have studied this data carefully. We have run the numbers many times. We have checked and double-checked our findings." Sarah's voice grew more serious. "Something is coming toward our galaxy, something massive, something that we believe has already destroyed other galaxies." A low murmur went through the chamber. Some aliens shifted in their seats. Others made clicking or buzzing sounds. The crystal beings chimed like wind bells. Sarah pressed another button. New images appeared showing computer models and predictions. "Based on the speed and direction of these gravitational patterns, we calculate that whatever is out there will reach our galaxy in 18 months. The murmuring grew louder. Sarah raised her voice to continue. "We do not know exactly what this threat is, but we can see the path it has taken. Entire galaxies have gone dark behind it. Billions of stars simply gone. Whole civilizations that existed for millions of years wiped out." She paused, letting her words sink in. "That is why Earth's government sent me here today. We need to work together, all of us. Every species, every fleet, every weapon we have. We need to start building defenses now, today, or we will all share the same fate as those dead galaxies." For a moment, the chamber was quiet. Sarah felt hope rising in her chest. Maybe they would listen. Maybe they would understand. Then she heard it. A sound like breaking glass mixed with music. It was laughter. One of the crystal beings was laughing. The sound spread. Another alien joined in, making deep, rumbling noises. Then another and another. Soon, half the chamber was filled with the sounds of alien laughter. Some hissed, some roared, some made high-pitched squealing noises. But they were all laughing. Sarah stood still on the platform, watching as the most powerful beings in the galaxy laughed at her warning. The crystal being who had laughed first stood up. His voice came through the translators, still shaking with amusement. "Honored council members, did you hear this? The humans, who learned to travel between stars only yesterday, want to teach us about galactic defense." More laughter filled the air. Another alien, one that looked like a giant squid with metal arms, spoke up. "We have been exploring space for 50,000 years. We have seen real threats. We have fought real wars. And this child species thinks they can scare us with shadows and empty space." "Their sensors are probably broken," called out another voice. "Human technology is still so primitive. They see patterns in random noise and think it's a galaxy-killing monster." Sarah felt her face grow hot, but she kept her expression calm. She had expected this reaction. The humans had talked about it before she left Earth. They knew the older alien species saw them as newcomers. As children who did not understand the galaxy, she tried again. "I understand your doubts. But please, look at the data, look at the evidence. We are not asking you to trust us because we are wise or experienced. We are asking you to trust the facts." The laughter died down, but the mood in the room was clear. They were not taking her seriously. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms stood up. This was Ambassador Kethmor from the Zephyrian Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Council. "Young human, we appreciate your concern. Really, we do. But you must understand that in our long history we have heard many such warnings. Species often mistake natural phenomena for threats. What you call a galaxy killer, we call a minor gravitational disturbance." Other aliens nodded or made gestures of agreement. "Furthermore," Kethmor continued, "even if there were some kind of threat, we have defenses that your species cannot imagine. We have weapons that can destroy stars. We have shields that can protect entire solar systems. We have survived for millions of years. A little gravitational noise does not frighten us." Sarah looked around the room one more time. She saw the expressions on their faces. Some were still amused. Others looked impatient, wanting to move on to other business. None of them looked worried. She pressed one final button on her device. The air above the platform filled with new images showing Earth's proposed defense plans. Massive space stations positioned between galaxies. New types of weapons designed specifically to fight an unknown enemy. Evacuation plans for entire worlds. "This is what we propose to build," she said. "These are the defenses we think we need. We are asking for immediate mobilization of all Council resources. Every species contributing what they can. Every ship, every weapon, every scientist working together." She paused, looking directly at Kethmor. "If you will not help us build these defenses, then humanity will be forced to pursue other options. We will protect ourselves with or without the Council's help." The laughter started again, but quieter this time. Some aliens looked confused by her words. What other options could the humans possibly have? Kethmor's crystal face showed what might have been a smile. "Is that a threat, little human? Are you saying that your 300 worlds will stand against the 46 greatest civilizations in the galaxy?" "I am saying that humanity will survive," Sarah replied simply. One way or another, the formal vote was called. Each species announced their decision. One by one, they voted against humanity's proposal. The crystal beings voted no. The giant squids voted no. The energy creatures voted no. Even the smaller, younger species voted no, following the lead of the older powers. Only one group did not vote at all. In the highest seats, where few dared to look, sat the Watchers. These mysterious beings never voted on anything. They just observed, as they had for millions of years. When the vote was finished, the tally was clear. 46 species against humanity's proposal. 0 species in favor. 1 abstention. Sarah turned off her device and put it away. The images in the air disappeared. "Thank you for your time," she said to the Council. "I hope you remember this day." She walked off the platform and headed for the exit. Behind her, the aliens were already talking about other matters. Trade agreements, border disputes, the normal business of running a galaxy. None of them noticed that Sarah was smiling as she left the chamber. 3 weeks passed after the council meeting. At first, nobody noticed anything different. The galaxy was huge, and ships took time to travel between stars. Trade routes ran on schedules that sometimes changed. It was normal for some delays too. But then Captain HFY noticed that his cargo ship was flying alone. He stood on the bridge of his vessel, looking at the empty space around him. His ship carried goods from the Centauri colonies to the Vega trade stations. This route was always busy. Human ships should be everywhere, carrying everything from rare metals to food supplies. Where are the humans? He asked his crew. His second officer, a young Altarian with blue skin, checked the sensors. I don't see any human ships, Captain. Not one. Captain HFY frowned. His species had been trading with humans for over a century. Human merchants were reliable, always on time, always ready to make a deal. Their cargo ships filled the space lanes between star systems. You could not travel anywhere in this part of the galaxy without seeing human vessels. Check the communication channels, he ordered. The crew tried to contact human ships, human stations, even human colonies. Nothing. The communication channels that usually buzzed with human voices were silent. Maybe they are having technical problems, the second officer suggested, but Captain HFY had a bad feeling in his stomach. He had been flying these routes for 30 years. He had never seen the space lanes this empty. On the other side of the galaxy, Director HFY was having the same problem. She ran the largest communication center in council space. Her job was to keep all the different species connected across the galaxy. Thousands of messages flowed through her systems every hour. She stood in front of a wall covered with screens. Each screen showed the status of communication relays throughout the galaxy. Most of them glowed green, showing normal operation, but a growing number of them were turning red. "Show me the human communication network," she told her assistant. The wall changed. Now it showed only the communication relays that humans had built. There were hundreds of them, creating a web of instant communication across human space. Every single one was dark. "This is impossible," HFY whispered. Her 6 arms moved quickly over the controls, trying different settings. You cannot shut down an entire communication network overnight. But that was exactly what had happened. Every human relay station had gone silent at almost the same time. No distress signals, no warning messages, no explanation. They had simply stopped working. "Director," her assistant called out. "I'm getting reports from all over the galaxy. Human ships are not arriving at their destinations. Human colonies are not responding to calls. Human trade posts have gone quiet." HFY felt a chill run through her body. She had worked in communications for 200 years. She had seen wars, natural disasters, and technical failures. But she had never seen anything like this. The reports kept coming in. A Zephyrian mining station that bought food from humans had not received their weekly delivery. A research base that employed human scientists found their labs empty one morning. A diplomatic mission that was supposed to meet with human ambassadors found the meeting rooms vacant. At first, the other species thought the humans were playing some kind of game. Maybe they were angry about the council vote. Maybe they were trying to make a point by stopping their trade and communication. But as days passed, the truth became clear. The humans were not just staying quiet. They were gone. Admiral Kethmer of the Zephyrian Empire was the first to send ships to investigate. He chose a small human colony called New Geneva, located only 2 days' travel from Zephyrian space. It was a peaceful world with about 10 million humans. Known for making the best coffee in the galaxy. The Zephyrian scout ship arrived at New Geneva and found something that made no sense. The planet was there. The cities were there, the spaceports, the farms, the factories, everything was exactly where it should be. But there were no humans anywhere. Captain Veltar landed his ship and walked through the capital city. The streets were clean. The buildings were undamaged. Cars sat parked along the roads as if their owners had just stepped away for a moment. In the cafes, cups of coffee still sat on tables, but they were cold and empty. "It's like they all just disappeared," he reported back to Admiral Kethmore. "There are no signs of fighting, no damage, no bodies. They are simply gone?" The Admiral sent more ships to other human worlds. Every report was the same: empty cities, functioning machinery. No humans. The mystery deepened when the ships tried to investigate human space stations. These massive structures orbited stars and moons throughout human territory. They should have been home to millions of people. Instead, the exploration teams found corridors that echoed with emptiness. In one station, investigators found a cafeteria where meals were still sitting on tables. The food was spoiled, but it looked like people had been eating and then just walked away. Personal belongings remained in bedrooms. Children's toys lay scattered in playrooms, but there were no children. No adults, no humans at all. Where did they go? Captain Veltar asked himself as he walked through the empty hallways. His voice echoed off the walls, the only sound in a place that should have been full of life. The other species began to worry. If humans could disappear overnight, what did that mean for the rest of them? Some alien governments sent their own investigation teams. Others increased security around their worlds. A few began to wonder if the humans had been telling the truth about the threat from dark space. The ethereal collective decided to investigate Earth itself. These beings were made of energy and could travel faster than any physical ship. They flowed through space like living light, covering the distance to the human home world in just a few days. What they found there was the most disturbing discovery of all. Earth was beautiful. The blue and green planet spun peacefully around its yellow star, just as it had for billions of years. The cities sparkled with lights, the oceans reflected sunlight. Clouds drifted across the continents, but when the ethereal beings flowed down to the surface, they found the same thing that other investigators had discovered. Empty streets, silent buildings, no humans anywhere. They searched the entire planet. 60 billion humans had lived on Earth and its orbital stations. Every single one of them was gone. In New York, they found subway trains stopped in their tunnels, as if the drivers had simply vanished mid-journey. In Tokyo, they discovered automated factories still running, producing goods that no one would collect. In London, they saw traffic lights changing colors for roads where no cars moved. Even the animals were strange. Dogs and cats wandered the streets, well-fed but confused, as if their owners had just stepped out and never returned. But the ethereal beings noticed something odd. There were no pet stores or animal shelters anywhere. Every dog, every cat, every pet bird was accounted for and cared for, but there were no humans to care for them. The investigation teams sent their reports back to their governments. The message was always the same. The humans were gone, but they had not been taken by force. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence of attack, no indication that they had left in a hurry. It was as if 60 billion humans had simply decided to step out of reality. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting 3 months after the disappearance. The great chamber that had echoed with laughter was now filled with worried whispers. Representatives from every species gathered to share what they had learned. Ambassador Kethmore stood at the central platform where Sarah June had given her warning. "We have searched every human world, every human station, every human ship," he announced. "They are all empty, not destroyed, not damaged, just dumpty." The crystal beings chimed with nervous energy. "How does an entire species disappear?" One of them asked. "Where could 60 billion people go?" A representative from the hive mind spoke up. "Our analysis suggests they had been planning this for some time. We found evidence of unusual energy readings at several human facilities. Something was happening there, but we do not know what." The squid-like Krillians shared their own disturbing discovery. "We found human research stations in deep space that we never knew existed. They were hidden, completely off our sensors. When we finally detected them, they were as empty as everything else." Fear began to spread through the chamber. If the humans could build hidden research stations, if they could disappear their entire civilization overnight, what else could they do? What other secrets had they been keeping? Director Vexhai presented her communication analysis. The shutdown was coordinated, she reported. Every human relay, every human transmitter, every human communication device stopped working within a 6-hour window. This was not random. This was planned. The implications were terrifying. The humans had not panicked. They had not fled in confusion. They had executed a plan so complex and precise that they had removed themselves from the galaxy without leaving a trace. But where did they go? Admiral Kethmore asked the question that haunted everyone. You cannot hide 60 billion people. You cannot move entire planets. Where are they? No one had an answer. As the meeting continued, one delegate noticed something that made the mystery even deeper. The Watchers, the ancient beings who... The emergency council meeting had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives from 46 species argued, blamed each other, and tried to make sense of humanity's disappearance. Some thought it was a trick. Others believed the humans had found a way to hide. A few wondered if they had been destroyed by some unknown weapon. Nobody had answers. The great chamber filled with the sounds of fear and confusion. Voices rose in panic. Translators worked overtime to convert dozens of different languages into something everyone could understand. Then the lights went out. Not just the chamber lights. Every piece of technology in the room stopped working. The floating displays went dark. The translation devices fell silent. Even the life support systems that kept different atmospheres separated shut down. For a moment, the chamber was completely dark and quiet. Then something appeared in the center of the room. It looked like a piece of the night sky had come alive. Stars swirled within a shape that was almost like a person, but not quite. The being seemed to be made of starlight itself, constantly shifting and changing. Looking directly at it hurt the eyes, like trying to stare at the sun. Every delegate in the chamber knew what they were seeing. This was a Watcher. The Watchers were older than any civilization in the galaxy. They had been observing and recording everything for over 1 million years. They never spoke. They never interfered. They simply watched, as their name suggested. Most species had theories about them. Some thought they were the ghosts of an ancient race. Others believed they were living computers left behind by the first intelligent beings. A few thought they might be something that came from outside the galaxy entirely, but one thing everyone agreed on was this. If a Watcher was speaking, something terrible was about to happen. The being's voice came from everywhere at once. It did not use the translation devices, but somehow every species in the room understood it perfectly. The words seemed to form directly in their minds, carrying meanings deeper than language. You laughed, the Watcher said. The simple words hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Admiral Kethmore felt his crystal body crack slightly. Director Vexhai's 6 arms trembled. Even the mighty Krillian Empire's representative pulled his tentacles close to his body in fear. The youngest among you saw what the eldest had missed. The Watcher continued. And you laughed. The starlight being raised what might have been an arm, and suddenly the chamber filled with visions that made no sense. The delegates saw space, but not normal space. This was the darkness between galaxies. The vast empty regions where no stars shone, but it was not empty. Something moved in that darkness. Things so large that they made planets look like tiny dots. Shapes that hurt to perceive, as if the mind could not properly understand what it was seeing. And these things were moving, flowing through the void like a slow river of destruction. The Devourers, the Watcher said, and the word carried with it the weight of absolute terror. They come from the spaces between spaces. They feed on the organized energy of civilizations. They have been doing this since before your stars were born. The visions changed. Now the delegates could see what the Devourers left behind. Entire galaxies reduced to scattered dust. Star systems that had been torn apart and consumed. Worlds that had been home to billions of lives, now nothing but empty space. They finished with the Andromeda cluster 2,000 years ago. The Watcher explained, "Your galaxy is next." Ambassador Kethmer tried to speak, but his voice came out as a broken whisper. How many of them are there? Numbers have no meaning for beings like these, the Watcher replied. They are not creatures as you understand creatures. They are hunger given form. They are the end of all things that think and feel and dream. The visions showed the edge of their own galaxy. Stars that had been shining for billions of years were going dark, one by one. Not exploding, not burning out, simply stopping as if something was drinking their light. The process has already begun, the Watcher said. Your instruments have not detected it yet because you look for light and energy. The Devourers consume light. They leave only darkness behind. Director Vexhai found her voice. But surely there must be a way to fight them? We have weapons that can destroy planets. We have shields that can protect entire solar systems. The Watcher's starlight form pulsed with what might have been sadness. You still do not understand. The Devourers do not attack matter. They consume the very concept of existence. Your weapons fire energy. They eat energy. Your shields are made of organized force. They feed on organization itself. A Krillian delegate spoke up, his tentacles writhing with panic. Then what can be done? How do we survive? You do not fight the Devourers, the Watcher explained. You cannot bargain with them. You cannot hide from them in normal space. They see all, consume all, end all. There's only one option. The chamber fell silent, waiting. You must step outside of reality itself. The words made no sense to most of the assembled aliens. How could anyone step outside of reality? What did that even mean? But some of the more advanced species began to understand. The ethereal collective's representative flowed with patterns of realization. Dimensional displacement, the energy, being whispered, moving into parallel layers of existence. Yes, the Watcher confirmed. Humanity understood this. While you expanded your territories and counted your wealth, they studied the spaces between dimensions. They learned to see beyond the boundaries of normal reality. Admiral Kethmer felt his crystal form growing cold. How long have they been working on this? Generations, the Watcher replied. The humans you met in council chambers were not the same humans who began this project. This was a plan that spanned centuries, passed down from parent to child, teacher to student, leader to successor. New visions filled the chamber. This time they showed human scientists working in hidden laboratories. Generation after generation, each building on the work of those who came before. They saw humans testing small objects, making them disappear from normal space and then bringing them back. They saw the first human ship that learned to slip between dimensions. They saw entire research stations that existed in spaces that most species could not even detect. You dismissed their early experiments as equipment failures, the Watcher continued. Ships that vanished from your sensors and then reappeared somewhere else. Exploration vessels that found empty systems which showed clear signs of recent habitation. You attributed these things to faulty technology. But they were testing, Director Vexhai realized. Learning how to move between realities. Yes, and while they tested, they prepared. They built the infrastructure necessary to move not just ships, but entire worlds. They created the systems needed to sustain billions of lives in dimensional spaces that were never meant to support physical existence. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just developed faster-than-light travel or powerful weapons. They had learned to manipulate the fundamental structure of reality itself. How is such a thing possible? Asked a delegate from the Altarian Republic. It requires an understanding of physics that your species have not yet achieved, the Watcher explained. But more than that, it requires something that most advanced civilizations lose as they grow older and more comfortable. What? Several voices asked at once. Desperation, fear, the willingness to risk everything on an impossible idea. The Watcher's form began to shift, showing images of Earth's history. They saw humans facing extinction again and again. Ice ages that should have killed them. plagues that wiped out most of their population, wars that brought them to the edge of destroying themselves, and each time somehow they survived. Humanity never forgot that existence is fragile, the Watcher said. They never became comfortable enough to ignore existential threats. When they looked into the darkness between galaxies and saw death approaching, they did not dismiss it. They prepared for it. But where are they now? Ambassador Kethmer asked. Gone, the Watcher replied simply. Humanity has withdrawn to places we cannot follow, carrying knowledge we cannot fathom. They offered to share their preparation with. You chose mockery over wisdom. The chamber erupted with panicked voices. Representatives demanded to know how to contact the humans. Others wanted to know if there was still time to build similar defenses. Some simply begged the Watcher to help them. The ancient being raised its starlight hand, and silence fell again. The Devourers cannot be fought with conventional weapons, the Watcher repeated. They cannot be reasoned with or bargained with. They can only be ... Humanity understood this. We had hoped you would as well. A small, quiet voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It came from the representative of the Pacifican Collective, one of the youngest species in the Council. Is there still hope? Can we still be saved? The Watcher turned its impossible gaze toward the young delegate. Humanity's offer was genuine. Their desire to save other species was real. But the process of dimensional displacement is not simple. It requires preparation, understanding, and most importantly, trust. Trust? Director Vexhai asked. Trust that those who offer salvation are not your enemies. Trust that those you once mocked might be your only hope. Trust that sometimes the youngest voice in the room is the wisest. 6 months had passed since humanity disappeared from the galaxy. 6 months of empty space lanes and silent communication networks. 6 months of fear growing stronger each day as the aliens realized they might have made the biggest mistake. In galactic history, Dr. Yolandra worked alone in her laboratory, surrounded by machines that most people could not even name. She was the best physicist in the Galactic Council, with a mind that could understand concepts that broke other people's brains. For weeks, she had been trying to solve the mystery of where 60 billion humans had gone. Her tentacles moved quickly over the controls, adjusting sensors and checking readings. She had pointed every instrument she could find toward the places where humans used to live. Earth, the colonies, the space stations, all of them were still there, but somehow different. There, she whispered to herself, there it is? On her screen, numbers and graphs showed something impossible. The planets were in the right places. The cities looked normal through telescopes, but the gravity readings were wrong. The electromagnetic signatures did not match. The quantum resonance patterns were completely different. It was like looking at a reflection in water. Everything appeared correct, but something fundamental was missing. Dr. Yolandra had been studying dimensional physics for her entire career. She understood that reality had layers, like sheets of paper stacked on top of each other. Most beings lived on one sheet and never knew the others existed. But sometimes, if you knew how to look, you could see through to the other layers. That was what she was seeing now. Impossible, she said. Even though the evidence was right in front of her, they moved entire worlds. She ran the calculations again, checking her work 3 times. The results were always the same. Humanity had not destroyed their worlds or abandoned them. They had shifted them into a parallel dimension, a layer of reality that existed right next to normal space but was completely separate from it. The technology required for such a thing was beyond anything the Council's greatest minds had ever imagined. Moving a single person between dimensions would take more energy than most planets produced in a year. Moving entire worlds with all their cities and people should have been impossible, but somehow, humanity had done it. Dr. Yolandra called an emergency meeting of the Council's Science Division. Representatives from every major species gathered in her laboratory to see her findings. The room filled with the greatest minds in the galaxy, all staring at her screens in disbelief. The gravitational lensing is consistent with dimensional displacement, she explained. pointing to charts and graphs that hurt to look at. Every human world, every station, every ship, they are all still there, but shifted into a reality we can barely detect. Admiral Kethmer's crystal form reflected the laboratory lights as he leaned forward. "How long have they been working on this technology?" "That is the truly frightening part," Dr. Yolandra replied. She pressed a button and new images appeared on the screens. "I've been analyzing old records, looking for signs of dimensional experimentation. The evidence goes back decades." The images showed incident reports that had been filed over the years. Ships that had disappeared from sensors for a few minutes before reappearing. Exploration vessels that had found planets with clear signs of recent habitation, even though no one lived there. Trade routes where cargo ships had arrived at their destinations with no memory of the journey. "We dismissed all of these as equipment failures," Dr. Yolandra continued. "But they were not failures, they were tests. Humanity was learning how to slip in and out of normal reality." The ethereal collective's representative flowed with disturbed energy patterns. "They have been preparing for this for generations. While we expanded our territories and accumulated wealth, they were learning to step outside of reality itself." Director Vexhi's 6 arms trembled as she studied the data. "The energy signatures suggest they have been testing smaller applications for decades. Ships disappearing from sensors, exploration vessels finding empty systems that showed signs of recent habitation. We thought our equipment was broken." "But it was not broken," Dr. Yolandra said. "We were seeing the results of dimensional experiments." Humanity was testing their technology, one piece at a time, building up to something we never imagined possible. A delegate from the hive mind spoke up. "How many humans are we talking about? How many people did they move?" "All of them," Dr. Yolandra replied simply. "Every human in the galaxy. 60 billion people, along with their worlds, their cities, their entire civilization. They shifted everything into a parallel dimension where the devourers cannot reach them." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. While the Council had been arguing about trade agreements and territorial disputes, humanity had been building the technology to save themselves from a threat that most species did not even believe existed. "But why did they not tell us?" asked a Zephyrian scientist. "Why did they not share this technology?" Dr. Yolandra looked at him with an expression that might have been pity. "They tried." Ambassador Shun came to the Council with warnings about the Devourers. She asked for help building defenses. She told us that humanity would pursue other options if we refused. "We thought she was bluffing," Admiral Kethmer admitted, his crystal voice cracking slightly. "She was not bluffing. She was offering us a chance to be part of their plan. When we laughed at her, when we voted against her proposal, we told them that we would not help, so they saved themselves." The scientists spent hours going over Dr. Yolandra's data, trying to understand how such a thing was possible. The math was incredibly complex, involving theories about space and time that most species had never even considered. But the evidence was clear. Humanity had not run away. They had not hidden in distant corners of the galaxy. They had stepped outside of reality itself, taking their entire civilization with them. "The energy requirements alone should have been impossible," muttered a Krillian physicist. "Moving a single planet would take the power output of a star. Unless," Dr. Yolandra said thoughtfully, "they found a way to use the dimensional barriers themselves as a power source. Look at these readings." She showed them energy patterns around the places where human worlds used to be. The patterns suggested that the displacement had not required massive amounts of external power. Instead, it looked like humanity had learned to tap into the natural forces that kept the dimensions separate. "It is like using the current of a river to power a boat," she explained. Instead of fighting against the dimensional barriers, they learned to work with them. As if summoned by their discussion, something impossible happened. Every screen in the laboratory suddenly displayed the same image. Every communication device in the room began broadcasting the same signal. Even the lights started flickering. In a pattern that somehow conveyed meaning, a human face appeared on all the displays at once. It was Ambassador Sarah Chun, but she looked different now. Her image seemed slightly out of focus, as if she was not quite there. Her voice came through clearly, but it echoed in a way that suggested she was speaking from very far away. "Greetings to the Galactic Council," she said, her expression calm and professional. "I hope you have been well since our last meeting." Every being in the laboratory froze. The humans were supposed to be unreachable, hidden away in dimensions that no one else could access. How were they communicating across dimensional barriers? "I know you have questions," Sarah continued. "I know you are wondering how we are doing. This, and why we are contacting you now. The answers are simple. We never left. We are still here, in the same space you occupy, just shifted slightly out of phase with your reality." Dr. Yolandra's instruments went crazy, detecting energy patterns unlike anything she had ever seen. The readings suggested that somehow the humans were reaching across dimensional boundaries to communicate. "We have been watching," Sarah said. "We have seen your investigations. We know that you have discovered what we did. We also know that the Devourers are approaching faster than we originally calculated." The image flickered, becoming even more translucent. Sarah's voice continued, but now it carried an urgency that had not been there before. "The barriers between dimensions are becoming unstable as the Devourers approach. Soon it will be too dangerous to attempt any kind of crossing. But there is still time, if you act quickly." Admiral Kethmer found his voice. "Time for what?" Sarah's image turned toward him, as if she could somehow see through the dimensional barriers. "Time to join us? Time to save your civilizations? Time to step outside of reality before the Devourers consume everything you have ever built." "But how?" Dr. Yolandra asked. "We do not have your technology. We do not understand dimensional physics the way you do." Sarah smiled, and for a moment her image became more solid, more real. "You do not need to understand it. You just need to trust us. We have built the infrastructure to support other species in our dimensional space. We have prepared refuge for any civilization that wants to survive." "All of us?" Director Vexhai asked. "All who choose to come," Sarah replied. "All who can admit that they were wrong. All who can accept help from the species they once mocked." The image began to fade again. Sarah's voice became distant, as if 4 months had never felt so short. Every day that passed brought the galaxy closer to its final choice. Stay and face the Devourers with useless weapons, or accept help from the species they had mocked and step into an unknown reality. The Galactic Council met every day now. The great chamber that had once echoed with confident voices was filled with desperate whispers. Representatives arrived with dark circles under their eyes, their various forms showing signs of stress and fear. Sleep did not come easily when you knew that death was approaching from the darkness between stars. The Devourers had reached the outer rim of the galaxy ahead of schedule. Long-range sensors showed the impossible truth. Entire star systems were going dark, not exploding in brilliant supernovas, not burning out after billions of years, just dopping. The light simply ended, as if someone had turned off a switch. Ships that tried to investigate the dark zones never returned. Even unmanned probes stopped transmitting the moment they crossed into the areas where stars had died. It was as if those regions of space had been erased from reality itself. Admiral Kethmer stood at the central platform where Sarah Chun had given her warning 8 months ago. His crystal form was cracked now, stress fractures running through his body like lightning frozen in stone. Around him, the assembled delegates waited for him to speak. "We were wrong," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Completely, utterly, shamefully wrong," no one argued. No one made excuses. The evidence was all around them. Stars dying in patterns that matched exactly what humanity had predicted. The timeline Sarah had presented was proving accurate down to the week. "Humanity tried to warn us," Admiral Kethmer continued. "They showed us their data. They offered to work with us. They asked for our help in building defenses, and we laughed. The word laughed seemed to echo in the chamber, bouncing off the walls like an accusation. Every delegate remembered that day. Every one of them had participated in the mockery, either through their own laughter or their silent agreement with it. Director HFY spoke from her seat near the communication arrays. They tried to save us all. They offered to share their preparation with every species in the galaxy. We told them their warnings were foolish. We called their technology primitive. We dismissed them as children who did not understand the universe. Her 6 arms gestured at the displays around the chamber, which showed the advancing darkness at the galaxy's edge. Now we know the truth. They were not children. They were the only adults in the room. The ethereal collective's representative flowed with patterns of deep regret. They saw the threat while we saw only our own pride. They prepared for the future while we argued about the past. They offered us partnership and we gave them contempt. A young delegate from the Pacifican Collective raised a tentative appendage, but they contacted us again. Ambassador Chun said they were still willing to help us. Surely that means they have forgiven our mistake? Admiral Kethmer's crystal form flickered with what might have been hope. Perhaps, but forgiveness and trust are different things. Why should they trust us now? What have we done to prove we have learned from our error? A question hung in the air like a challenge. What could they offer humanity except the same pride and arrogance that had caused this crisis in the first place? A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Elder Kick's volume of the Spiral Confederation, one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy. Her ancient form moved slowly to the central platform, supported by mechanical aids that helped her ancient body function. I have lived for 3,000 years, she said, her voice thin but clear. I have seen the rise and fall of civilizations. I have watched species grow powerful and then destroy themselves with their own success. But I have never seen anything like what humanity accomplished. She paused, looking around the chamber with eyes that had witnessed the birth of some of the species present. They did not just develop advanced technology, they maintained wisdom. They remembered that survival requires humility. They never forgot that the universe is vast and dangerous and full of things that do not care about our pride. Elder Kixville's words carried weight that came from centuries of experience. When she spoke, even the most arrogant delegates listened. The question before us is not whether we can trust humanity, she continued. The question is whether we can trust ourselves to change. Can we set aside the pride that brought us to this moment? Can we accept that the youngest species among us became the wisest? The chamber fell silent. Outside, through the great windows that looked out into space, they could see the edge of the galaxy growing darker. The devourers were consuming star systems faster now, their hunger growing stronger as they fed. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the chamber. Emergency lights flashed as urgent messages flooded the communication systems. Director HFY's console lit up with incoming reports from across the galaxy. What is it? Admiral Kethmer demanded. Director HFY's 6 arms moved frantically over her controls, trying to process all the incoming data. The Krillian Empire, she said, her voice filled with shock. They are trying to fight the Devourers. Images appeared on the chamber's main display. The mighty Krillian battle fleet, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, had assembled at the edge of their territory. Thousands of ships formed battle lines, their weapons charged and ready. They had decided to make a stand. The delegates watched in horrified fascination as the battle began. The Krillian ships opened fire with everything they had. Planet-killing weapons that could destroy entire worlds unleashed their fury into the darkness. Energy beams that could cut through the cores of stars lanced out toward the approaching void. For a moment, it looked like they were making progress. The weapon strikes lit up the darkness, creating brief flashes of light in the dead zones. But then the lights faded, and the darkness continued to advance. The Krillian ships fired again and again, pouring more energy into the void than most civilizations produced in a century. Their weapons worked perfectly. Their aim was true, but nothing happened. The devourers consumed the energy as fast as the ships could produce it, growing stronger with each attack. Then the darkness reached the first line of Krillian ships. The delegates watched in silence, as the mighty vessels simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not torn apart, just gone. One moment they were there, proud and defiant. The next moment, there was only empty space where they had been. The retreat order came too late. The darkness swept through the entire Krillian fleet like a wave, consuming ship after ship until nothing remained. 10,000 vessels, the pride of an empire that had ruled for 50,000 years, erased from reality in less than an hour. The last transmission from the Krillian admiral came through just before his flagship disappeared. His voice was calm. Accepting, defeated. We were wrong. We were all wrong. They weren't running away. They were building tomorrow. The communication ended in static. The Krillian Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, was gone. The chamber was completely silent. Every delegate stared at the displays showing empty space where the Krillian fleet had been. The reality of their situation finally hit home with devastating clarity. This was not a problem they could solve with weapons or technology or clever politics. This was the end of everything, unless they accepted humanity's offer. Admiral Kethmer found his voice first. I call for an emergency vote, he said. All in favor of accepting humanity's offer of dimensional sanctuary. The vote was different. This time, very different. One by one, the species that had laughed at humanity's warning raised their voices to accept their help. The crystal beings voted yes. The energy creatures voted yes. The hive minds voted yes. Even the proud spiral Confederation voted yes. 40-5 species voted to accept humanity's offer. Only one voted against, the representative of a small mining collective, who declared they would rather die free than live as refugees. The vote was barely finished when the air in the chamber began to shimmer. Points of light appeared throughout the room, growing brighter and larger until they became doorways made of liquid starlight. Through the doorways, the delegates could see impossible sights, cities floating in space that had no stars, forests growing in dimensions that had no ground, oceans that flowed upward into skies that had no end. Sarah Chun stepped through one of the doorways, but she was no longer the slightly out-of-focus image they had seen on the screens. She was solid, real, present. Behind her came other humans, scientists and engineers and diplomats, all ready to help with the greatest evacuation in galactic history. Welcome, Sarah said simply. We have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. The dimensional barriers opened wider, revealing vast spaces that existed outside normal reality. Spaces where the devourers could not follow, where civilizations could survive and grow and remember what they had learned. As the delegates began to step through the doorways, each species carrying what they could of their culture and history, they understood something that humanity had known all along. Sometimes the greatest strength was not in standing your ground, but in choosing an entirely different battlefield. The last being to cross over was Elder Kixville, helped by human assistance.